Hello everyone and welcome to Crash Course Literature. Today we're going to be talking about my bad. We're talking about Sula by Toni Morrison. But we're not just going to be talking about the whole book, we're going to be talking about sexual liberation in the book. So, to give a little bit of context, start out with the patriarchy, a patriarchal society and some discrimination against women. Because the two main characters in this book, Sula and Nell, both women, both African American, so they get the double whammy. So, nice little quote here on page 49. So it says, when a woman approached, the older men, they tipped their hats, the younger one, they opened and closed their thighs. And so that just showed the demeanors that the men had towards the women. Not bueno. Not acceptable in today's society either. The other part is that they're African American, so they get racial bias too. So this next quote on page 55 is talking about Nell and her mom. The quote reads, "When Mrs. Wright reminded Nell to pull her nose, she would do it enthusiastically, but without the least hope in the world. While you sitting there, honey, go ahead and pull your nose. It hurts, Mama. Don't you want a nice nose when you grow up?" As for African Americans and white relations go, there's a possible subsidiary social status of African Americans that resulted in more hostility towards Sula after she slept with white men. Which, getting to the white men and Sula part, yeah, that's very frowned upon in the bottom, which is where they live. That's very frowned upon in their community. Um, there's a nice little quote in the foreword that Toni Morrison included, and it says that outlaw women are fascinating, not always for their behavior, but because historically women are seen as naturally disruptive, and their status is an illegal one from birth if it is not under the rule of men. In much literature, a woman's escape from male rule led to regret, misery, if not complete disaster. So that just shows that that literature implies that they need to have a man in their life to be successful. Toni Morrison's trying to change that because two main characters, both women. And then there's the early emerge of sexuality in both Sula and Nell. So when they're around the age of 12, 13, or 14, they are, they're emerging, they're going through puberty, the times are changing. Nice little quote here on page 50 says that years later, their own eyes would gaze as they cupped their chins in remembrance of inchworm smiles. The squatting haunches, the track rail legs straddling broken chairs, the cream-colored trousers marking with a mere seam the place where the mystery curled. Those smooth vanilla crotches invited them, those lemon-yellow gabardines beckoned them. My bad, there's a little bit of language in that one, but it's a solid quote. These attractions occur as a natural part of mundane life instead of being lustful or even erotic as perceived by the public of the bottom. Another solid quote is on page 58, and it says that underneath their dresses, flesh tightened and shivered in the high coolness, their small breasts just now beginning to create some pleasant discomfort when they were lying on their stomachs. Mr. Jenkins, what does Toni Morrison mean by pleasant discomfort? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, middle school me, you just haven't experienced those pubescent changes yet, have you? Alright, moving on, we're going to talk about the gradual difference in liberation in the three generations of Sula's family. So we're going to start out with Eva, Sula's grandma. So Eva was she heavily loved her husband, and so she was in a solid relationship, and quote on page 32 says that he did whatever he could that he liked, and he liked womanizing best, drinking second, and abusing Eva third. So Eva was married, and she was separated from her partner as she discovers her inability to manage her family without being dependent. This is the first step to liberation. So, moving on to the next quote, it says, "Young man been here directly. Ain't it about time you got busy? Oh, Miss Eva, it'll be ready. We're just having spaghetti." Again? Eva's eyebrows fluted up, and the newlywed pressed her lips together in shame. So, however, the conventions persist, according to Eva's saying towards family life, as women required to serve their husband timely and thoroughly. the duality of Eva's attitude towards sexism after the departure of Boy Boy. Guess what? We got an open letter to Spaghetti. An open letter to Spaghetti. Dear Spaghetti, thank you for being the reason that Eva gets upset, and thank you for being a delicious dinner last night. You fit any occasion there. Oh, wait. I'm supposed to be connecting this back to Sula. My bad. Shouts out Spaghetti for showing us all Eva's view on family life and how she believed a woman should treat her husband. You're the GOAT. Best, Kobe Jenkins. Moving on from Eva, we got Hannah next. Here's a quote on page 42. Hannah simply refused to live without the attention of a man, and after Rikus' death had a steady sequence of lovers, mostly the husbands of her friends and neighbors. Her flirting was sweet, low, and guileless. The desire of Hannah is more restrained, which means that it has no disruptive impacts on the community. Notice that Hannah even sleeps with almost all the husbands in town, but they still defend her in front of their wives. This is different from Eva, because Eva wasn't really the one going out and going crazy. Then you get Hannah, who does a little bit, but it doesn't have a negative impact on the community. Then we move on to Sula. Sula follows in her mom's footsteps, but then takes it even a step further. And different than Nell. Nell is not this type of person. Sula is. So, comparing Sula to Nell, here's another solid quote on page 110. It says, Now Nell, thighs were really empty, and it was then that what those women said about never looking at another man made some sense to her. This was just saying that Nell wasn't getting it and hadn't been getting it for a while, and look at Sula doing her thing. Granted, she did it with the white men, which was very frowned upon in her own community, but her thighs weren't empty. She was getting it. To wrap things up, we've got to hit these three main points that we just talked about, right? So we had the discrimination against Sula because, one, she's African American, which in this day and age, you're never on the high side. And then also, she's a woman. And so, in a patriarchal society such as this book, to make changes, you have to do something like extravagant. You have to do something against the societal norm. And so that's what Sula does. Or it starts with Hannah, and then Sula continues that they aren't the normal find a husband at a young age and then stay married. They go out and see what you like. They tried everything. And although Hannah didn't piss off the bottom, she didn't really piss society off. Sula pissed society off. But Sula's the one making changes. She's the one changing everybody's views on everything. So, good for her. And then we have the evolution of the liberation through the generations of the family. Starts with Eva. She's the first step in the right direction, and then we get to Hannah. She starts going a little crazy, trying everything out, but she didn't piss society off. And then we got Sula, who just flies free like a bird in the wintertime, man. She's going crazy, but she's just living her life. She's living her best life. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Crash Course Literature. Have a good one.